Welcome to episode 2 of our Learning from AI Leaders series. This podcast is powered by Rapid AI for Learning. Co-founders of Rapid AI for Learning, Dinesh Puran and Mohammed Subsabi, interview leading voices in the AI for education space. This week, we have Narelle Stefanac joining us from Microsoft. Thank you so much for coming along to help us explore AI skilling, a methodical and innovative approach.
Yeah, so I'm the AI skills lead at Microsoft. So my remit is to really look at what are the skills that the marketplace actually needs, and then how do we get them out really quickly so we can skill people at scale. And it's about sort of elevating the base level capability of individuals across an entire nation, but then also how do we deepen the proficiency of those technical professionals so that they can really accelerate new product development, innovation, and even just giving them and their organizations that competitive edge. So for me, it's just keeping a lens across, my remit is the Asia market. So looking at those really big growth markets across Asia, and then being able to provide the right skilling into the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Where are you seeing the most movement in terms of AI potential? I mean, obviously we have Australia, but what are the other markets in Asia that are moving fast in this space?
Yeah, I would say China and India are two massive growth markets. We do typically see that there's a faster growing population of developers in both of those markets, and they're developing on open source, on Microsoft Azure Stack, on Google, on Amazon, so across many, many different platforms. And they have a massive influence over what gets developed in our region. So I'd say they're two big growth markets that we're absolutely seeing.
Speaking of our region, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese recently mentioned that AI is helping teachers and students to get better results. How's that been achieved in your experience, in your role?
Yeah, look, I'd say first of all, AI is sort of helping everyone. What I've seen with teachers in particular is that it gives them this massive leapfrog gain in productivity, but also the quality that they're able to produce.
Yes.
So a great example I saw recently actually was there was a higher education symposium on AI, and it was held at the University of Sydney. There were educators from all these different universities. There were over 50 different talks during the course of the day, and they were talking about how they can actually use AI in real classes, in assessments, in activities. And one of them actually spoke about how they created 7 agents, so AI agents, to be able to build curriculum faster, go through that development phase, but also the implementation phase as well. And it cut their time to build in half. So it had this sort of immediate impact on them. I mean, it did take them a while to play around and get the right outcome because they were trying to build it with one agent and it wouldn't do what it wanted to. So building out this sort of multi-agent, real specific, specialized agent structure helped them to go through all these multifaceted phases. But it also, it did cut his own work time in half, but it also meant that the quality of the simulations that were created in there and the volume, the absolute number of simulations that students could interact and play with, were just far beyond what a singular academic could ever have done by themselves. So it just elevates and propels that capability for teachers. There's probably 3 big things that students are really gaining from AI. So the first one would be this personalized experience. So a lot of AI personalization platforms or systems are coming to the front now, and that just meets the student where they are. They don't have to go through and do all the groundwork that they've already done before. They can actually just pick up where they need to start. So that's a really interesting change in the experience for the learner. The second one I would say is our AI-powered tutoring systems. So think chatbots. Okay, I've got a complex problem. I don't know how to solve it. How do I interact with it? We're definitely seeing the emergence of these playing a significant role in the student's experience. And then the third one, which I love because I've been studying educational neuroscience, is about this rapid recall, right? How do you actually use AI to build out things like quizzes and flashcards to help someone retain that information that they've just learned and recall it in a way, in a different setting, a different context. It just helps to really solidify what they've learned. So yeah, I'd say they're the top 3 for students.
Yeah, excellent. And Sal Khan spoke about the virtual assistant for the teacher and the virtual tutor for the student. Is that the way that you see it going at the moment? That basically AI will be there to help both teacher and student in that sort of capacity?
100%, absolutely. Even within the Microsoft environment, we have agents that help our own Microsoft technical trainers, and they can also help students. So instead of being able to have to interrupt the class to be able to ask a question, they can actually just ask the agent and then get the clarification that they're looking for. And we're building lots of different agents internally, even just to do our own jobs. So I can attach it to a knowledge base like a SharePoint system, and then I can go, okay, there's a lot of information in that SharePoint system. I want to know what this project is even about. Give me a quick summary. And it can scan the hundreds of documents that are in there and be able to give that information straight back. So I think that concept of agents playing a really key role to being your personal assistant that sits by you and can answer all the complex questions you don't want to look silly asking. Absolutely, that's definitely there.
And can I just ask a question there as well, Narelle, about the human in the loop? Because some of the concerns that teachers have had is around the information potentially going from an AI assistant or a bot to the student and not necessarily having the quality assurance or having the teacher there in the loop. Are there ways to mitigate this?
Yeah, there should always be a human in the loop is sort of the short answer. And I think the interesting part is that there is a lot of grounding that you can do with the responses, and you should always test your agent, right? You would never just build an agent and go, now go forth. You should test it on some of the challenging questions that you would anticipate. And I've created an agent recently. I'm not a techie,
Oh, wow.
even though I do have my AI engineering a certification through Microsoft. I wouldn't classify myself as a techie. With that agent, you can actually ground it so that it only responds in the way that you need it to, right? So I would tell my agent, don't make anything up. If it doesn't exist in the document, do not tell them. And then I would test it out. Like I would really push it to say, does this, get localized into Vietnamese language? And it'll say, yes, it can be. And I'm like, no, if it's not explicitly said, don't give it that information. So it's just about playing with the agent. I think that's the human in the loop right at the beginning, to make sure that the agent is really, really robust. And then it's also about making sure that you have a feedback loop as well. So most of these agents will have thumbs up, thumbs down. So when they're going through that testing, but you should always have someone there that's auditing what's coming out of these agents. Definitely always human in the loop.
You've been talking a lot about, how users of AI can, leverage the technology for their benefit. What are some of the particular skills and tools that that are around at the moment that can help achieve those things?
Yeah, I would say that the skills that we're seeing people needing to develop right now is thinking about the base level skills. So what is AI? So it depends on where you're at in your journey. So get some base level grounding and then be able to build on top of those skills to be able to develop further. And the things that we're seeing really hot right now in terms of skill development, especially more on the tech side, is multi-agent systems and agentic AI. So this sort of leans a little bit back on your question, Dinesh, around having a human in the loop, right? Because multi-agent systems are basically where you'd have a specialist agent and you'd have multiple of them, and they all collaborate together and they all solve problems together and they can work out something really complex. And the reason why you'd have many of them is because they can all run in parallel and they go faster. And so, if you wanted to have a pizza party, this is a great example I was given once. If you want to have a pizza party, you could have an agent that just took everyone's orders in a really nice way. And then your other agent could be someone that's just really fun and they're good at planning games. And so they're just going to build out all the games and activities for the party, right? So you'd have a planner, you'd have a decorator, you'd have, someone who's going to do the cleanup. So all these agents can work in parallel and they have very clear jobs and roles and responsibilities. So some understanding that you can do that with an agent, right? So people are starting to use prompting and they're using it like they're using a Google search. But the way that you interact with a prompt is that imagine if it was a real person, like if you're interacting with them and you had to get a job done, what sort of questions would you ask? If you didn't know stuff, how would you ask a question to learn stuff? So you just interact with it in a very human way. And that's why multi-agent systems are just like experts in their craft. And then agentic AI is sort of building on that concept, but instead of just leaving it there and like coming up with lots of ideas and going, yeah, we're going to have a party, they actually start doing stuff. So the ordering agent, instead of just being nice and asking everyone their order, they could actually then call the restaurant for you and make the booking and then process the transaction, right? They could make the payment for it as well. So I'd say, like, when you're thinking about developing your skills in AI, just understand what's out there, right? Like, I don't go out and build many agents. I use the very no code version of agent building, but you can do a lot more than that.
How would some of those skills apply in an education setting, do you think?
Well, if it's for a student, they could create their own agent to be able to look over all of their notes that they've taken or files that have been shared, and they can use it to be able to help them build out their own little process for study guides, or their own personal assistant say, I know I learnt this somewhere, I can't even remember where, help me find out where it was, when it was, who actually taught it, I just don't know. And they can just interact with it and help them find and go through that discovery instead of spending a lot of time trying to sift through things themselves. So think about that automation and taking away that cognitive load of having to remember stuff. They can, from a teacher's perspective, I love seeing the way in which teachers are being very creative with being able to develop lots of different AI services. So not just agents, but thinking through what is the learner's experience and how do we better understand our learners on that journey. And they might be distracted. There might be something that's happened in their life that is sort of taking them away from their studies. And these systems are able to identify that really quickly and also push through interventions to be able to help them. So rather than having to be exposed, like a student would normally go get a call from someone, and it'd be quite intrusive. You haven't been studying. Is there something wrong with you? And it is. It's like confronting, and it could actually push someone further away. So having these systems that are automated where they can speak autonomously to them and then get the outcomes that they need. So it might prompt and say, did you know that you could actually ask for an extension on this? Or did you know that there's these services that you can take up to be able to support you on your journey? I think, being able to apply those in that setting is really, really helpful and constructive for a student.
I can also see some value in being able to create adaptive and customized individual learning programs for students, the ones that you're talking about that require intervention, and then having a program that, meets them where they are in terms of their academic ability, and then rebuilding their skills to a level that's required based on the curriculum.
Yeah, adaptive learning is absolutely where I think we're headed. And I think half the battle with the education system, so I don't have a university degree, but it's because I don't learn in the same way that others learn. I love learning. Learning is actually one of my top core strengths, and I keep falling into learning roles, but I don't learn the same as others. So the academic system didn't necessarily work the way that I needed it to. And I think if there was a different experience, people would fall in love with learning because it's about curiosity, right? So what AI does is it unlocks this ability for you just to go and explore. And a lot of people are explorers, but they might not see themselves as academics. So, they're curious. They want to ask questions. They don't want to look silly. They want to be able to have the confidence to know that the information that they're getting can be trusted, that it's reliable. So, it's not just about providing the opportunity to the students, but they need to be comfortable that what they're going to get back is actually going to be of value as well. So I love the concept of adaptive learning and being able to meet the student where they are, and then also being able to continue to foster that learning by giving them ways in which they can interact that makes sense to them.
It seems that this is going to be much more intuitive. And there's going to be more opportunities for that adaptive learning. It's going to be more in tune with what the user wants, that user experience. So, are there any things that you see will change as we sort of pivot more from generative AI into agentic AI?
Yeah, so I think generative AI will still be there, it'll be just for different purposes, right? So generative AI is really that creative engine. So I might not be the creative genius, right? But I need to come up with a marketing concept to promote something. So I will tell my generative AI, and so whatever you use, it might be Copilot, it might be something else, might be ChatGPT, I would tell it that they are a marketing guru and they are going to help me to perform this amazing task. But I have no clue. I don't even know what questions to ask you. So please give me a list of questions that I should ask you to make sure that we do this really well. So it will go, great, I'm happy to go on this journey with you. And it will just keep prompting you, and it, so that creative engine and helping you get the right outcomes will still persist. And I absolutely love it. I use it every day. But
Yes.
I think the agentic AI is, wow, you told me that I was available. Like, so I did a prompt yesterday. We had a promptathon, and they said, come up with a promptathon that can help, a prompt that can help you get better work-life balance. And I said, great, can you check my diary for today and tell me where I have 3 times available for a 10-minute well-being exercise, and tell me what I should do in that 10 minutes as well. And so it came back and it said, you have 14 meetings for today. Jeez, I'm busy. And then here's 3 time slots where you have 10 minutes, and here's 3 exercises you can do. So it just all came back. So it was a really easy prompt. What I would have loved is just a little, okay, book it in, like put it in my diary, and that's the bit that's missing. And that's agentic. And so you still have a human in the loop. It's given you the answer, but now you're saying, yes, I agree to that and I want that, and now add it to my calendar, and it's doing that task. So I think it's just going that extra step. I think that's going to be a big time saver, being able to move to that.
What sort of AI jobs do you think will emerge in the short to mid-term future?
Yeah, so what we know already. So there was a work report. It was done by Microsoft and LinkedIn, and it was the work change report. And it looked at what are all the emerging roles and the impact of AI on jobs. And number 1 role globally right now, across 15 different countries, is AI engineer. So definitely it's there, it's strong, it's growing, and it'll continue to grow. We're also seeing the emergence of a head of AI. So someone within an organization, so you know how you have your chief marketing officers and your chief technology officers and chief financial officers. Well, you've got this head of AI or chief of AI. And the importance of that role is about thinking about all of the innovation through the product line of an organization to make them more competitive. So they think about everything they could be doing in manufacturing or production or development, and how do they build out the products of the future. So we're definitely seeing an emergence in those 2 top level roles. But we're not just talking about top level, right? So I would say when we look at the marketplace, AI is only as good as the data that it runs on, and if the data is secure. So data engineers, data scientists, security engineers, and the cross-pollination between those as well. And then the final one that I've seen starting to emerge, AI ethics consultant. So that sort of goes back again to your question around a human in the loop, but everything that you do with AI should be transparent, it should be secure, it should be reliable, and it should be trustworthy, and it should have the right ethics and morals attached to it. It's just some really simple principles of responsible AI, and having someone dedicated to that role in your organization is going to be critical for the success of your products.
Yeah, I know that Australia is very much around the AI ethics principles and the voluntary AI safety standards from the National AI Centre. So we see that Australia is moving in that direction. We know that Europe has gone with the EU AI Act, and of course the US is more around that sort of self-regulation when it comes to
free market
and so on. How do you see this? Is this a challenge for you as a global organization when there's, I guess, different sort of ways that ethics is viewed across the world?
I would say what we're seeing is markets are really interestingly responding in different ways. And for us, we jump on the opportunity where it exists, right? So we look for those governments that are actually thinking about embedding ethics and decision-making, like responsible AI, in unique ways. And how do we best support them? Because it's not really about us. It's about if they believe that there's a need to appoint. So in Australia, they were appointing roles dedicated to AI governance and AI ethics, and they gave a deadline as to when it needed to happen. And we're like, this is brilliant. This is so good. Like the structure that the Australian government has invested in was really at the forefront of what we're seeing globally, and absolute massive advocates and big supporters, because Microsoft runs on trust. So we love to see governments stand up, and we will absolutely prop them up and support them as much as we possibly can. In other countries, so in New Zealand, they have more of a principle, you know, so they have sort of guidance around what they want to provide. But they do work really closely with the Australian government. So they're taking learnings and sharing ideas as well. And so it's about making sure that whatever path they take, we can actually support them in a really meaningful and impactful way.
And Narelle, can I ask, why is it so important to have a methodical approach in relation to upskilling of AI skills?
Yeah, look, I think anytime you have a really organized approach to skilling and you're really sort of systematic about it, you can build this baseline foundation. Personally, I'm a big believer in this. It's called the power of tiny gains. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but the concept of a power of tiny gains is that once you've got a baseline, right? So you're just sort of thinking about, I want to invest in my AI skills. What is AI? That's it, right? Just really basic baseline. You've got to have something to start from. But if you improve by 1% every day for 365 days in a year, so it means that ultimately your capability, your knowledge, your base is growing by 37.78% by the end of the year. So, but all you're investing is 1% a day. So it's achievable. And that's how I like to sort of build on, like, if I have a growth mindset, if I have this learning culture, if I can just do 1% more every single day and learn a little bit more, my baseline knowledge is just exponentially getting larger. So for me, it is a very systematic approach, and it is a piece of, you know, daily learning. No matter how small it is, I need to learn something every day. And the thing that I love about working at Microsoft is that they really emphasize that sort of strong learning culture. They want us to be employees that have a learn-it-all mindset rather than a know-it-all mindset. Yeah. And that's because you can't know it all. You know, that's AI is moving so fast. The tech industry is moving so fast. How can you know it all? You never will. So having a learn-it-all mindset really opens you up to be curious and keeps you at pace and learning new things and different things that you can bring in that could be valuable.
And Narelle, that resonates with stuff that we're hearing, and certainly resonates with our own personal philosophies as well around continuous learning and the importance of it. But I know that at the World Economic Forum, Jo O'Driscoll Kearney, she called for investing in your own learning, that many organizations have lost that art of investing in their people, in the learning of their people. And I just wanted to get your take on this.
I think everyone should take learning into their own hands. But I think organizations do have a role to play, because they can power up a whole ecosystem if they do it right. And it's something that I've spoken about for many years. So I also worked with LinkedIn Learning, as well as other education institutions. And so the whole concept of org-wide learning, like if you want to stimulate an entire organization to be able to structurally change their behavior, and in this instance, if you're thinking about AI, it's a technology adoption. So why wouldn't you apply the technology adoption curve to the way in which you think about skilling your organization? People within your organization are broken into 5 main groups. You have these innovators, you have early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and then the laggards. And you're always going to win over your innovators. They're super easy. You know, they'll do a pilot, they'll do a lab, they'll do a simulation, they'll get on a hackathon. You just need to sort of say something shiny and they're in, right? But they pretty much only make up about 2.5% of your workforce, right? So it's a teeny tiny amount of people that we're talking about winning over. Early adopters, they're slightly different. They are still like more traditionally easily won over, because the way in which organizations typically brand themselves and market their products is very similar to how early adopters like to be treated as well. So they want to see a case study. They want to be interacting with leaders who are explaining the value of why this is important, why doing this thing, adopting technology, making the change, doing the skilling, why it makes a difference, and why they care about that. And then with the early majority, they're completely different. So this is where businesses typically get stuck. They do their innovators, they do their early adopters because they're largely easy to win. That makes about 15% of your workforce. The early majority are about a third of your workforce, just over, and they will be more about structured training. So be more methodical in your approach, to your point earlier. Tell me how this is going to benefit my role. I want to be with the cool kids. I want to be like those early adopters. I can see them using it. I want to be there, but I need more help. I need more peer-to-peer learning. I need it to be structured in a way that makes sense to me. But organizations usually struggle with that group because they don't have the money, the time, the resources to do it. And that's because they haven't capitalized on the first two groups. So if you sort of think through your plan a little bit longer, like actually go through the exercise and do your plan really, really well, right from the moment that you're starting to activate your innovators or your early adopters, you should be seeding what their role will be with the early majority and the late majority. Like, what is their role that they're going to play? And make sure that you've got structures in place to be able to pull them all the way through, because they're the people that are going to be wrapping their arms around that early majority. Your late majority will come on board because they've got a fear of missing out, but they will want it to be more structured, more step-by-step guidance. Again, make it basic, make it simple, make it easy for them to be part of everyone else that's moving forward in the business and they're not being left behind. So, and that's another good third of your organization. Your laggards only make up about 16% of your organization, and they're the hardest group. They really need that personalized attention and maybe one-on-one coaching. But if you think about it, right, a manager might have 10 direct reports. So we're talking 2 people in their team max that they may need to nurture a little bit more with some personalized coaching. Those managers should be taught how to identify it and then what to do about it. If you think through your workforce that way, you can come up with a great plan, and you can come up with one that won't have to cost you a fortune, but you're activating your entire workforce and the community that's going to wrap around all these people that are actually going to structurally change the way that people think and do things within your organization.
Narelle, are there any particular organizations, industries, dare I ask, individuals that you can think of and able to share that are showing strong, determined, organized strategic leadership, how to implement AI across the organization?
Well, there are a lot of really amazing organizations that I've seen, specifically in Australia as well, that are doing some really interesting work. So we're definitely seeing industries where they see massive opportunity for AI to have an impact on their products and their competitiveness, because they've had to embrace it for that perspective. They're so far ahead of the curve in terms of what others are doing that they're able to now think about, hey, how do we bring our front line along for the journey? And so they've created that space and created that mindset that AI is a part of how we are. And if you listen to the way in which they talk about transformation, a lot of businesses are still talking about digital transformation, but these organizations are talking about AI transformation. It's just a nuance, but it's just a different perspective. If you have a lens on your organization that it is AI first, and that you're going to lead from the front and have that in the narrative of your CEO, of your executive team, of your business leaders, if it's an AI first mentality, then you'll have the ability to really pull the rest of your organization along for the journey. And definitely FSI and telco are doing that. So FSI, financial services industry. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Narelle, are you seeing any education outlets or institutions that are taking a lead either in Australia or in the Asia Pacific region? And again, if you're able to sort of give us some insights on that.
Yeah, we're amazing in Australia in terms of our academic institutions. And I've seen a lot of work done out of UTS, so the University of Technology, Sydney. They've got some really intelligent academics, as we do in many of our institutions. But the reason why this one springs to mind is because there's been an award winner who was actually skilled leaders within the Defence Force of Australia as well. So, and has won awards for the work that they've done in AI leadership. And it does begin with leaders. So I think UTS is a really interesting one.
I guess a lot of the dynamics we've noticed within the education sector, and I talk about the education sector as incorporating, school-aged education, vocational and higher ed, that AI is not being led or driven by leaders. It's being driven at a grassroots level. Do you think that there is merit in that, or are there any risks in approaching AI implementation in this way?
Well, we also did a report last year. I think it was 74% of Australians said that they'll bring their own AI to work and they weren't getting any training from their business, right? So I know the needle's starting to move on that, but this was like really shocking, right? If you have no controls and you don't know what they're using, what tools they are, how they're using it, and you're not providing any structure or guidance, you're going to get inconsistencies and people operating at different levels. I think it is in the best interest of an organization to take control over their AI skilling motion, even if it's something simple, like just ground everyone on the same thing, even if it's an organization-wide 1-hour workshop that people can just dial into. Maybe it's a lunch and learn and you do it once a week or once a month. But, you have to start to drive some level of narrative that you want to communicate, and also the tools in which you are happy for people to engage with and utilize. And they might be free to use tools, right? They don't have to be licensed tools, but you should give guidance as an organization so that you know where your data might be going. It's really important that organizations stake a claim in that dialogue and start to provide some guidance.
And you have to be able to filter the guidance down, right, as well. So, if it's coming from your leadership teams, it comes to the teachers, the trainers, the educators, then it's much easier to teach and train the students and give them that direction and guidance as well. Because I think that's what's been missing.
Yeah, 100% you should be doing that. One of the things that we think about is an AI academy structure. So in the academy structure, it has how do you build this muscle with your leaders in terms of making good decisions, to think ethically about the way in which they're considering new product designs, and so just getting them to think through what their role is as a leader of their organization. But then we also think about business enablement, and that's more your functional leads. So how do you think as a head of marketing, what does AI mean to you? What does it mean to your division, or a head of sales, or a head of procurement? So thinking about AI and the implication of your role and the teams that you're responsible for. And there is a different type of skilling for that. It needs to, it's got to be less technical, right? It's more about action oriented. This is how, you can sort of level up. And here's the things that AI unlocks for you. And have you ever thought of this, right? It's really sort of opening that window to potential. And then it's the people on the ground, like whether you're technical or you're a business user, you need to hone your craft. And it might be, if you're a business user, honing your craft might be as simple as, how do I write a prompt just so I can, improve what I'm doing? Or how do I use it within a tool so that I can be more productive? So it's just thinking through the applications all the way throughout the entire organization. And we typically sit that under like an academy structure that can run different modalities, different scales. So some are in person, really small groups, some are large scale, thousands of people at a time, some are longer form, shorter form. So, but it's really thinking through that model to be able to help people wherever they are.
If you're giving advice to leaders of an organization, in this case, let's say leaders within the respective education sectors, and if they're thinking about implementing a whole of institution approach to planning and implementing an AI strategy, what would be your advice to them in terms of where they should begin?
Well, personally, if I was in their shoes, I would get a consultant that specializes in that area. Don't be shy to ask for expertise outside your organization, because the likelihood that you would actually know it, if you haven't come from a technology background and you're not performing in it at the moment, it would be challenging. It'd be challenging for anyone to do. So I would absolutely seek expertise. And there's some amazing consultancy firms out there that can definitely look at your organization, see where you're at, and then think about what are the opportunities based on who you are, what you do, and what your core market is. So I think definitely start with some sort of reconciliation of who you are as an organization, and then make sure that you're really clear on your aspiration. Like, what is it that you want to be? What is your North Star? What is your Nirvana? What are you aiming for? What does amazing look like? Because that will guide what you end up developing and what your strategy and what your structure of your organization needs to look like as a result. So I think start with reassessing who you are and what you want to be renowned for. And you might need to do that with the guidance of external parties like consulting firms.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Narelle, for being a part of the Learning from AI Leaders series. We really appreciate your time.
Amazing. Thank you both. Great to see you.
Fantastic insights. Thank you, Narelle.